Good morning, everybody. It is the 24th of February 2023, and this is a significant day because 1 year ago, Russia under President Putin launched its special military operation to protect ethnic Russians in the Donbass area in the east of Ukraine and to try to bring an end to conflict that had been ongoing for 8 years since the United States deep state backed revolution in Ukraine in 2014 when Victoria Nuland and others overthrew a democratically elected government in order to place their puppet into Kiev, who would support Ukraine joining NATO and joining the EU. This escalation that has happened over the last year, which is now dangerously close to bringing us to a real hot World War III with an exchange of nuclear weapons, could have easily just been avoided totally if the Western-backed Ukrainian puppet government had stuck to the Minsk agreements. But they didn't, of course, with the provocation and encouragement of the Western deep state military industrial complex interests, who have turned Ukraine into a hellhole of corruption, money laundering, and who knows what happens with children in that country and women in that country and so on. People go over and there's a lot of exploitation going on there, if you know what I mean. They want that because a lot of people are personally financially gaining from keeping Ukraine in that state. We know about the Bidens. We know about Hunter Biden and his £1 million annual job with Burisma, the oil company there. He doesn't have to do anything for that money. That's just scratching the surface of the people who are exploiting and gaining from keeping Ukraine in that state. And a lot of people in the United States deep state want to do the same to Russia. They hate Russia. They want to break it up into small statelets, which can then be exploited, and they can take and steal the resources from the statelets they want to create, as they are doing in Syria, where Syrian oil is being stolen by the United States every single day. So we are in a situation where there is a small number of people in the West who are pushing for escalation and to continue and keep this war going. And they're now coming out almost every week with the statement that Ukraine must win, Russia must lose, Putin must lose. This is like three-word mantras, three-word phrases are very, very powerful in language, in semantics. They stick in the head. That's why they use three-word phrases like this, and to try to get everybody to recite them like some kind of meme or spell or something like that. They just, people say them and repeat them sort of mindlessly. We have today in the United Kingdom the unelected Prime Minister. Well, his party was elected, but he got installed in a coup d'etat, who is now Rishi Sunak, is calling for a minute's silence to mark the 1 year anniversary of the start of the special military operation and the events in the Ukraine conflict since that had happened. I'm not going to observe that. But more dangerously, he's now calling for aircraft to be given to Ukraine, on top of just a month ago or so people pledging to give tanks after they pledged to give artillery and so on. So there's been a huge escalation over the year in the kind of military hardware and equipment that Western governments, not with the support of the people, but the governments themselves, have just been acting to escalate and send more money, more weapons to the Zelensky regime, which of course is infested with National Socialist groups in the politics and also in the security services and in the armed forces groups like the Azov Battalion and so on, that even the mainstream media condemned over the last 8 years until 2022 for flying swastikas and things like that. So this is where we are, and I've been calling from the very beginning for de-escalation, to calm things down, to negotiate, to seek peace. It's the wrong future for the world to go into a nuclear holocaust. Of course it is. But these people seem to have no concept that this is going to wipe out everybody, including themselves. I mean, you would think they're from some other species, if who actually wants to destroy this planet, rather than human beings who have just got some kind of intelligence, who would think we need to step back from running or driving headlong towards the precipice of nuclear disaster. But that seems to be what they're doing. Whether that's the leaders in the United States like Biden and Secretary Antony Blinken and Undersecretary Victoria Nuland, or the warmongers in the United Kingdom, Boris Johnson, Liz Truss, Rishi Sunak, the German foreign minister who doesn't seem to have much intelligence at all, as Anita Baerbock and so on. They're all rushing headlong towards escalating into a very disastrous war that will encompass the whole world. The tragedy of the last year lies mostly on the shoulders of the poor Ukrainian men who were not National Socialists, just people who wanted to get on with their lives, who have been forced by those people to go to the front line around Bakhmut and the other towns where the fighting is in the east of Ukraine, to their deaths. And 200,000 plus young Ukrainian men have been sent to that fate completely unnecessarily. And, Russians have died as well, not in as great a number. And foreign mercenaries have gone over, some for money, some for, idealism, misguided idealism, and they've lost their lives as well. People who have believed the propaganda coming out of the Western governments and mainstream media. And of course, this is very, very powerful propaganda, which is being created by the same people that created the propaganda for the lockdowns in 2020 and the injections in 2021 and 2022. And now 2022 came along, of course, and the injections were still going on, but then this Ukraine situation started to happen. And we just simply should not have got involved in it. Let those people sort it out for themselves. There are over 30 conflicts going on in the world. Nobody who is pushing for an escalation in Ukraine is saying a single thing about conflicts in Yemen or in Eritrea or in Burma or Honduras or central Nigeria or many of the other places where there are conflicts going on. They're just completely ignored. Congo, for example, which is the world's longest running conflict, which is even more brutal to individuals than what's happening in Ukraine, and nobody is saying a damn thing about it. Everybody is absolutely silent about that, as though it doesn't even exist, but as putting all the media and government attention onto Ukraine and pouring money and weapons into that country. The right future for the world is to de-escalate this and to find good leaders in Western nations who will put their nations first and their people first, rather than propping up this regime, which I'm sure some of them are personally benefiting from, and benefiting from the corruption that happens there. And also, by escalating this into a world war, whether it's nuclear or not, even if it was just conventional, it would still be incredibly damaging to everybody. They want to cover up the fact that the injections have caused a lot of they've called, how shall we put it? There has been an increase in excess mortality, and there's been a decrease in the birth rate concurrent with the start of these injections. But that some people want to cover that up as well. They don't want to be held responsible for the program that they've rolled out, on top of the fact that most Western countries are so deeply mired in debt that we're now in a debt trap that we can't get out of. So countries where the debt to GDP ratio goes above 100%, it's then almost impossible to get out of that debt trap unless something happens like a war, or you get conquered, essentially, or you conquer some other country and pillage their resources. That's maybe one reason why some people want to take Ukraine and Russia and pillage their resources in order to pay off the national debts. Not that they will do, because they just take them for themselves, but that's the theory anyway. This can't happen. This mustn't happen, because every day that goes on, thousands more people are killed, and no one in the governments is even thinking about those poor men who get sent to the front line. Why doesn't Boris Johnson go to the front line, pick up a rifle and sit himself down in the firing line? Or Joe Biden? No, they don't go. Zelensky, he doesn't go. He just goes swanning off around the world, making films and appearing on the covers of magazines and at award shows and ceremonies and things like that, rather than going and actually doing any of the fighting himself that he wants to continue doing, and sending other people to their deaths to do so. Why don't they go to the front line? Then the thing will be over far, far more quickly. But there we go. This is just another statement, if you like. I mean, I can call for de-escalation. Obviously, that's falling on deaf ears in the United Kingdom, with 3 different prime ministers we've had this year since the start of the special military operation, and they've all wanted to escalate it, and now they are using the terms war, conflict, not special military operation. Of course, Putin is now using that term as well, simply because Western countries in NATO have basically, obviously, turned this into a proxy war, and some of them are actually openly saying that the West is at war with Russia, like Anita Baerbock, the German foreign minister, and so on. But by their actions and their statements, Rishi Sunak is very clear that he is prepared to do anything to help Ukraine in its war with, as they would put it. Again, this is the wrong language. I hope to grow the Heritage Party, which is the only party in the United Kingdom which is against escalating this conflict. Tory, Labour, Lib Dem, Green and Reform UK under Richard Tice all want more money and more weapons to be sent to the Zelensky regime. I don't. I hope to grow the party, to win seats in Parliament, and to be able to be in a position to make some decisions about this, and to de-escalate and take our country and the world in some way, to down the right path and not the wrong path. So, I'm gearing up for a general election, which will be next year. I hope we get there without the world being destroyed in a nuclear holocaust in the first place. But I certainly will not be observing Rishi Sunak's call for a 1-minute silence, but I am calling for a de-escalation, a negotiation, and to choose the right future, which is a future of cooperation and friendship with other countries, rather than a future of escalating tensions.